throughout the day, and for some new arrivals, this is the nonprofit portion of the program. And the way Chris Baggett is standing, I think he's going to kick it off.
Before we start, for Ren's sake and for ours as well, can we ask who is a nonprofit? And can you one at a time tell us where you're from? Let's start with that.
Reverend Summers from United Church in Johnson, Vermont.
Ellis Johnson, Vermont Council on Rural Development. And Montpelier / Waterbury / working in Johnson and around the state.
You're not easy, right?
Anyone else?
I'm Kate Bennifer, Miss Orchard Valley Walkers in East Montpelier.
I heard Orchard Valley.
Orchard Valley Walkers in East Montpelier.
Okay.
And I can just say I'm Rachel Loner, and I'm at the State Archives, and I co-lead background Vermont Arts and Culture Disaster Resilience Network with the Vermont Arts Council. So I work with a number of arts and culture private nonprofits who are impacted by the flood.
Great.
I just want to interject. We are going to be recording this session, so if you weren't nervous already, or if you object, just cover your
written
speeches.
approval.
All right.
Sir.
My name is David Wolf. This is Roger McManus. We represent the Montpelier Resurrection Baptist Church overall.
Okay. Anyone else? You? No? Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Chris Baggett, and I'm the infrastructure branch director.
Wait a minute, you said another not.
I do public assistance stuff. So if you're not familiar, the public assistance branch within FEMA is the largest grant writing program, not just in FEMA, but in the entire federal government. Last year, we obligated about $145 billion funding for disaster recovery. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about public assistance, but I want to specifically talk about private nonprofits and how you can obtain some funding reimbursement. Okay, so Mary, please. Thank you. So public assistance grants are funded by FEMA and administered by the Vermont emergency management folks, and we have Ben with us in the back of the room. Hi, Ben. Hello. Okay, so when a disaster is declared, such as we have now, actually, if you don't know, we have 4 open disasters currently in the state. 4 as far as I'm concerned. Okay, 4, and another 7 that haven't actually been closed out, but that's another story. So we had the large one, which was last July, so we're coming up in another month on the anniversary, right? And then one in August, one in March, December, and then March, right? Something like that. Okay. So December and then January. Okay. Yeah, it didn't get declared until March or something, right? Right. Yeah, okay. All right. So our function in public assistance at its base is to reimburse applicants for any losses that they have suffered and to rebuild their infrastructure, be it a road, a bridge, a dam, a building, a utility, could even be something like a municipal golf course or baseball field, back to its pre-disaster condition. Okay. So these grants are designed to help state, local, and tribal government organizations and certain private nonprofits to make repairs to utilities, public buildings, roads, bridges, and other infrastructure that are damaged by a declared disaster event. To be eligible, a private nonprofit must legally own or be responsible for whatever broke. Your roof got blown off, your building got flooded, what have you. They must be responsible for maintenance and operation of an eligible facility that is accessible to the public. So your private nonprofit organization has to be open to the general public. You can't discriminate against groups or cater to just certain groups. And we had a somewhat interesting situation yesterday with one of our PNPs because they own the building, but they didn't own the dirt that the building sat on. The land was owned by the town. So that was interesting, but they were responsible and were legally, they legally owned the building. So that's fine. Very often, we have situations where we have PNPs who don't own the building. They lease the building. So what we would ask for is a copy of your lease. Because generally in the lease agreement, they will tell you who is responsible for repairs. Very often you may see things like you as the lessee are responsible for general maintenance and cleanup of the building. But for major repairs, the owner of the building is responsible, so that will fall back on them. Thank you. So we have what we call our eligibility pyramid, and it all starts with the applicant. So the first step in reviewing whether or not you are eligible for funding, we need to figure out whether or not you are eligible. So we are going to ask you, first of all, to fill out what's called an RPA, which is a request for public assistance, which is basically a one-page check the boxes, fill in the blanks kind of thing. It's relatively easy. And we'll put up the web page in here shortly. So we can get it. However, there are some other hoops that you're going to have to jump through. Okay. In order to receive FEMA funding, you must first go to the Small Business Administration and ask them for a loan. Now that said, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but I'm pretty sure it's over 90% of the organizations, especially private nonprofits, that apply for SBA loans are turned down. So when you get turned down, they will send you a letter. You then give the letter to FEMA and say, here, we turned this down. Now give me money. Okay, so you must first go to the SBA. If the SBA says no, then you come to FEMA and FEMA will write you a grant if you're eligible. Okay? So that's the first step. The second step, we talked a little bit, the facility has to be eligible also. You have to be the owner, all that sort of stuff. And then the work that you're going to do to fix the building or whatever the facility is has to be eligible. And we can talk a little bit about that. And then the last thing is, of course, are the costs reasonable? And reasonability is sort of in the eye of the beholder very often, right? So that's very often negotiated. Okay, so again, to be eligible, a private nonprofit must own or operate a facility that provides an eligible service. What is an eligible service? Well, if you are a critical service, and by definition, a critical service is either for education, is for a utility such as electrical generation and distribution or a wastewater treatment plant, those kinds of things. Emergency medical care, clinics, hospitals, etc. At this point, almost all hospitals, a vast majority anyway, are considered private nonprofits. Or you provide some type of emergency service, an ambulance squad, fire department, rescue squad, what have you. So those are critical. Essential services, on the other hand, would be community centers that provide some of these services to the public, such as art, educational enrichment, performing arts, neighborhood meetings, senior citizens programs. We often have battered women's shelters and things like that also. And then other facilities such as assisted living, homeless shelters, houses of worship, libraries, museums, senior citizen centers, zoos, etc. Thank you. Okay, so our grants can be broken into two parts, if you will. The first one is emergency work, the other is permanent work. Now, for emergency work, we have two categories. The first one is category A, or debris removal, and the second one is emergency protective measures. So as Ben so kindly mentioned yesterday, while emergency work must be completed within 6 months, if you have a reasonable explanation of why you could not get it done within 6 months, you come to FEMA and you say, hey, we couldn't get it done within 6 months. Can you give us an extension? Yes, sir.
Actually, a friendly amendment, Chris, is that the state, as the recipient, has the authority to grant a 6-month extension.
The first
We
one,
did a
right.
uniform extension for categories A and B up to 12 months, and then for beyond that, we have to route to you for approval of extending our
Thanks. Okay, so whether or not you are familiar with this, and you're probably not, debris removal is one of the biggest things that we do and reimburse people for. On many of our disasters throughout the country, debris removal often accounts for 50% of the total cost of the recovery effort. Okay? And then emergency protective measures would be things like security, police officers, fire departments, ambulance squads, all of that. So if you have, for instance, if you're running a shelter under disaster type conditions, you very well may need and require security. If that's the case, people will reimburse you for the cost of that security. Okay? And then, as I mentioned before, we break down all these different types of infrastructure into different categories. So Cat C is roads and bridges. D is water control facilities such as dams, things like that, levees. E is buildings. And in this particular disaster, that's going to be the biggest category for permanent work by far. Category F are public utilities, again, electric companies, things like that. And then G is sort of a catch-all. Anything that doesn't fit into the other categories, it fits there. As you see, this is parks, recreational, and other. Okay, yes, sir.
When I worked Hurricane Michael in Florida, none of the nonprofits knew anything about this. So I contacted as many as I could and said, look at it. This is a public assistance program. And you go talk to these people. So some of them did. And of course, they also had to deal with insurance. But, you know, it's the sort of thing that sometimes the nonprofits are the last ones to find out.
Almost always, they're the last ones to find out. And that's all Ben's fault.
Well, what I'm thinking is it would be nice if each state kept track of the nonprofits. I'm sure they all have to register with the state. I would think they certainly have to register with the IRS. But if there was a catalog of nonprofits and where they're based, Whenever there's a disaster, it'd be so much easier for,
We
and
kinda-
maybe they've already got that.
Mary,
I don't know.
That's exactly why we're doing this now, so that they
Okay.
know for the next time, and it's being recorded.
Okay,
And so the state will be ready to roll out this piece of video,
there you go.
and there's a wide network. Vermont has more nonprofits per capita than any place else in the country. And through their networks, they'll be able to share this information and get the word out quickly so that they know and they can tell their colleagues and partners, hey, you need to be aware of this. You need to
Yeah,
do it.
that makes total sense. because
We have
they're-
we have a new operating system in FEMA called Grants Manager. And there's an accompanying adjunct to it, if you will, called Grants Portal, which will allow the state to go in, they can hit just a couple of buttons and pull up every private nonprofit that has ever requested FEMA assistance before. So that should help in that situation. Okay. I was gonna say something else, but
I'm sorry.
okay. So for private nonprofits, for debris removal, it is limited to that which is associated with your facility. So again, the situation I talked about a little bit before, where we had a private nonprofit that owned the building but didn't own the land surrounding it. So the debris that was generated from the building getting flooded, some of the furniture, carpeting, sheetrock, all that stuff had to be removed. And that certainly was eligible. But they also had downed trees on the property surrounding it. That was not, they didn't own the property. So the town actually owned it, so the town wound up being eligible. Or we still took care of it, but we spent it kind of split hairs there. Okay? So emergency protective measures are generally limited to activities associated with preventing damage to an eligible facility and its contents. Again, that may mean that you need security, or that you took actions to prevent further damage. So you rented pumps to pump out your basement. You use sandbags, whatever. So all of those costs associated with that are eligible, as well as the volunteer labor. I'll explain that in just a few minutes. Okay, so FEMA does not provide public assistance funding for the costs associated with emergency services unless those services were performed at the request of and certified by a legally responsible government entity. Okay, so you can't just do it on yourself, you have to ask first. However, so let's say you own a building. The roof got blown off the building in a tornado. And it's going to cost $100,000 to repair your roof, replace your roof. Okay? So how does this work? Well, it can work one of two ways. You can go out and call a contractor and say, please give me an estimate for the repair of the roof. And they come back and they say it should be $100,000. And they write you a proposal. You give FEMA the proposal, and we will then, in effect, review it and validate it. We'll say, yeah, this looks reasonable. Okay, go ahead and do what you need to do. However, you may not have the capacity or wherewithal to do that. So you can say, FEMA, please come and help us, and we will send out site inspectors to complete a damage report. We will then send that information to what's called our CRCs, which are consolidated resource centers, where we have cost estimators whose job is to do this. So they will write the scope of work as well as the associated costs. We will then send them to you to validate them. The road does go in both directions. And what happens if our estimators say, we think it's going to be $60,000 to fix this roof, and you go out and get 3 bids, and the lowest one is $110,000. What happens then? Well, it's usually pretty easy. If you follow your procurement policy, you go out and get 3 bids, and the lowest one is $110,000. Well, then really, by definition, that's a reasonable cost. It took the lowest of 3 bids, so we're gonna say, okay, it's 110,000. The next question people often have is, what if I have insurance? Well, insurance goes first. So if you have $50,000 worth of insurance on your building, and the cost is $100,000, we will write the grant for $100,000. We will then subtract the anticipated insurance proceeds of $50,000. And ultimately, the bottom line is we'll write your grant for $50,000. Right? Thank you. All right, quickly, in a nutshell, if you are a critical PMP facility, we talked about those definitions, right? It's really simple. Emergency work is eligible and permanent work is eligible, okay? However, if you are not a critical facility, you have to go through the SBA hoop, get it approved or denied, send it to us. And then even if you are approved by SBA, again, if you have $100,000 worth of damage, but SBA says we're only gonna lend you $50,000, you can come to FEMA and say, please cover the costs that are not covered by SBA. Okay, so we'll make up the difference, but you have to go through SBA first. All right. Here is the website where you can download the request for public assistance and get lots of other information. You do have 60 days from the date of the declaration to request public assistance. That does not mean you have to fix whatever broke. That does not mean you have to do any work. That does not mean anything except you have to fill out and submit the application in 60 days. That just gets the ball rolling, right? So, are you here because you didn't get your application in time?
No, sir.
No?
No.
You did not?
No, we're not here for that reason.
Okay. So what reason are you here for?
All right. We've gone through the process.
Uh-huh.
We filled out the paperwork for the SBA loan. We were denied, as we expected we would be. We began the process. There were some circumstances beyond our control that occurred, which did not allow us to receive or to get or have access to the information about the various pieces that needed to be projected, put in projects and contracted. We had a couple of our mainstay leaders in our church have emergency medical situations arise about the same time, naturally. And as a result, we decided that we could not proceed with all of the paperwork that we needed to have at hand to do it. So we had a sit-down meeting with representatives from FEMA and from PA, of Burlington, a very nice meeting. And I have no complaint with, the process and the way we were handled and everything. It was very upfront, very affirming. And we just decided at that moment that we had to back out. Couldn't do it. We didn't have the manpower at the time. Within a matter of a week after that, the circumstances that I spoke of as being very difficult to obtain the information we needed changed. Long long story short, the pastor resigned. Within a week or so, we attempted then to re-enter the system. We were told that that was not possible. The time had expired, which it well had, I believe. And so we have, for almost a year now, we have not been able to utilize our facility. It is not livable. It is not able to be occupied. It is good property, real estate property, not 2 blocks away from here. We were hoping for a buyout. We were told that public assistance was the only source of a possible buyout. However, the gentleman that we've been working with over in Barry said he didn't think that was quite true. So he said, you need to go to that meeting here at the State House and figure it out. That's what we're here for.
Stay at the meeting and let's talk.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Sure.
Super.
Thank you.
Who wants to go next?
We did not have cause to apply before, so I'm here to try to find out before anything else happens in the future. So
That's a good thing. It really is. All right.
I would say likewise, I'm saying information sharing for the future, but I would say wearing my municipal hat in the community where I know the local nonprofits very well, but wouldn't have necessarily shared this with them within 60 days. Probably some like these folks like to be out next week possibly. But again, I think many didn't have cause to apply.
Okay. Yes.
I'm here to learn more and more. I feel like I learn more and more every day, but mostly just how to help keep our building stable. We are at the end stage of renovation, 350,000 damages. And grateful to be at the end stage, and grateful that all of the users of our building have returned. But how do we keep up hope that it's not going to happen again? That's what I hear every day.
Okay. So a couple of things. Number one, we do have a mitigation group.
Yes.
Okay. So remember I said that it's base. Our job is to return a facility to its pre-disaster function, form, and use. However, we would really like to not have to come back to you next time this happens. So we can go over and above that. We can help you with some ideas. For instance, flood proofing. If you're in Florida or Texas or Oklahoma, putting on hurricane clips on your roof so it doesn't blow off certainly is a good idea. Those kinds of things we will pay for. In certain circumstances, if you are in a floodplain, it may make more sense to move your building, given the damages, and it's easier said than done, but it certainly can and does get done very often. We have historic buildings and stuff like that, picking them up and moving them quite difficult physically. So there are a number of methods that we can utilize. So if I heard you correctly, you said you had $350,000 of damage?
Give or take 10,000.
And did FEMA help you?
Not yet. We're still in that process with SBA.
So you're in the SBA process still?
Our application, we were told it arrived in Texas sometime, but it didn't arrive according to the authorities there. So I'm back and forth. I'm grateful for the man who's here today to talk to.
Okay. Have you spoken with FEMA people?
The mayor in Johnson, yes.
Okay,
And you actually look familiar. You were-
no,
Okay.
I've only been here about 6 weeks, so. Ben?
I'm sorry, what's the name of the church?
United Church of Johnson, right across from the Sterling Market. You're right on the convergence of the,
The clock is damaged.
where they meet.
I saw it yesterday.
So did you in fact apply for FEMA public assistance?
We've been through all of that. Our application to SBA, certified FedEx, deliver and confirm delivery, pick up us.
Understood. But does FEMA have your application?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay, so you're a registered
So,
absolute.
right, so they're in the mix, we're waiting for the lost SBA denial letter, I guess, at this point. Okay.
We're making progress.
Can we look into that?
Yeah, that's,
Okay, so we will contact you. All right. So yeah, we can do some stuff to help you out. Something else I was gonna say.
While you're thinking, I just want to interject, we learned that the building actually closes at 4:15, not 4:30, so if you find that to be inspiring in terms of the pace of everything.
I would encourage anybody who needs to talk public assistance or hazard mitigation, definitely take a few minutes and connect with Ben and Chris after we finish. I expect we'll be done well before 4:15. I hope.
I was just about done,
And
so,
so, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Just, you know, people don't understand why these things take so long. But seriously, we have, we will write, I think, 1,750 or so projects for this, when all is said and done. I think something like that, 1,700, 1,750, something like that. And,
In this area, you're saying?
for Vermont, yeah. And the total will be, 700 million, you think?
So,
Okay. I think,
walk around, let's get it done.
I think we're always said and done. I think it'll be about 700 million. And when I got here 6 weeks ago now, I think it is. I think, Ben, we're 16% complete. I don't want that check. Number of projects written. And yesterday we passed the 50% mark. I don't know if you're aware of that. We passed the 50% mark, yes.
Written, not obligated.
Sent, correct, sent to the CRC.
Okay, congratulations, that's inside baseball from the customer standpoint.
Right, I know that.
We need to get the money to people before we count the.
It's all about. So, and lots of it. So, all right, anybody have any other questions?
The mitigation is a sense, so like we didn't experience heavy flooding, but we are on a river, so would we perhaps qualify for mitigation assistance, even just someone coming out and saying, what can we do to make sure that we don't flood?
The short answer is yes. Okay, so there are two different types of mitigation. There's 404 mitigation and 406 mitigation. And those numbers, by the way, just simply refer to the section of the Stafford Act. Where you can find them, okay? So 406 mitigation is that which is added to our projects, our grants, to reduce future problems and that we don't experience the same damages again, okay? So that's for damages that occurred as a result of the declared event. 404 mitigation is different. So what we do is we take all the money that we spent, so again, let's say it's $700 million. FEMA will give 15% of that total to the state of Vermont. And that money can be used at basically at the governor's discretion to provide mitigating measures for virtually anything. Does not have to be damaged in this event, it can be used for, sounds like what you're talking about. So you need to talk to the state and tell them your tale of woe. And, so it's basically, I assume, Ben, this is more or less a competitive type of thing for your mitigation dollars.
It likely will be before the dust settles, yes.
Yeah.
But we have an intake form, we'll set people up for it.
Sure. So generally, what happens is they do sort of a benefit cost analysis. What will your project cost versus how many people will benefit from? Okay. Anybody else have their hand up? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Again, I invite you, please come and talk to me. Certainly.
We're fine, you're right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to talk. Other than that, Mary, do you want to take a quick break or how do you want?
We don't have to.
We're going to keep on keeping on?
Press on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Sure.
Feel like I've been a bad boy.
No,
No, you're getting extra credit.
Getting extra help.
Oh, good, thank you.
I'm gonna do my best to go the final slides today. If you guys can look at the last series, I have not. So, today I'm doing my best. When you have a disaster, your first things that you're going to do is actually sign up for FEMA. And you can do that by several ways. There's a website, you can call the 800 number. TRCs will be available, which you can talk to somebody in person. And they also have it for hearing impaired or speech. So that is your first step. You also, if you have insurance, you sign up for insurance at the same time, because as everything else, we do have a deadline. And if you've already signed up, then if your insurance, you still haven't got money from your insurance, or anything like that, sometimes you can make up those differences and then you can pay them back, but at least you can have a deadline. Okay. So then when you sign up, you apply for FEMA assistance. They send out somebody to an inspector to inspect your house. If it is something that you really, really disagree with because you really feel better for your eligibility, you can always request, you can call in and request a second inspection. And then it comes us. So your voluntary organizations. Go ahead. So individuals and households may receive financial assistance. So it used to be called, during your guys' disaster, it was called critical needs, which is a one-time payment. Now it's called serious needs. So I'm going to go through a couple of different things, because when you guys had your disaster that was declared last year in July, there were a few things that have changed now. So any future disasters will be a little different. When you had yours, just got blank. It did not cover anything that was pre-existing, right? So now any future disasters, it will cover pre-existing damages to your home. So that's huge. The second really, really big thing is when you apply for FEMA, they ask you to go on to apply for SBA loan, right? A lot of people said no because they're not a small business, and so therefore your application stops at that point. But if you do fill out the SBA loan, even if you are denied, then you go into a second part of the need, which is called other needs assistance. Okay, and other needs assistance will cover your personal properties, and cover your vehicles, tools, computers for school, things and that such. So also, if you have two vehicles, because that's your, mom drives this way, dad drives this way, they drop kids off, there's no way one vehicle's going to work. People will or can, pay a portion of each vehicle. You won't get a max for each, but you will get one, for one, and then you'll pay up as well. And then there's the next owner, which covers burial expenses, in the event somebody passes away due to the disaster or in the disaster. You can also pay for, these are extra incurred expenses such as, child care. You guys don't live close to the school, so, or your jobs, so your children have to go to aftercare, after school care, so therefore there's an added expense that could cover that as well. It can cover you lose your dentures, your glasses, or something happens and you get injured, it could cover that as well. Any kind of medical equipment. Okay, so this is where by this time every day, so I've already explained all of this. So this is my last update. Comes long-term recovery groups. I know you know what long-term recovery group is. Does anybody else know what they are? No? Okay, so you know what counts. So long-term recovery group is actually, Vermont's a little different because your guys, it usually goes by counties, and Vermont doesn't do that. I mean, the county lines are everywhere. So it's a long-term recovery groups. Normally, each county, we try to help build long-term recovery groups, which consist of nonprofit, non-government, faith-based organizations, local partners, anybody that can bring through one of the three M's of local, which is money, materials, or manpower. You want to have them at your table. So once you get these people, and so as a battle, from day one, we start doing research. We want to find out where those resources are. We will have people sign up for every county. They'll be knocking on doors. I mean, I am horrible because I will come back to you there 10 times if that's what it takes. And I will even look every single time. But we bring those partners together. And that's when that county will form a long-term recovery group. You have right now, Marietta, in that row here, who's representing them. That's one of your many. Montpelier also has one, but there's 10. So I don't have the list with me, I'm sorry, but you do have 10 within the county. I know each one of them do need volunteers. So if you could look those up, they would be more than happy to accept you. But so say your home is impacted, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough FEMA money, you're underinsured or not insured. Those long-term recovery groups, you will be signed a caseworker. You will go to the table, that caseworker will take you to the table with the long-term recovery group, and between those partners and the money that they have raised, they will find the materials and the money, and then we can help. They bring in partners to rebuild the homes for free. So that's what the long-term recovery group is. And our goal is to build them strong enough that when we leave, because this is not a FEMA program, this is a national rollout program. We just help explain to them and guide them what are the best policies and practices that have worked and not worked in the past. So if they are a strong enough organization when we leave, when you guys have your next disaster, they can get the money in the first week after a disaster instead of 8-9 months down the road. So, did you get any questions? That's good.
Great.
Good afternoon, we're in the home stretch, folks. I'm Denise Gilliam. I'm here with the Canadian Interagency Recovery Coordination Group. I do not work for SBA, but our SBA partners have gracefully said we can go ahead and go these few times. So what does it mean? In SBA role for the public assistance program, everything is may be available The low interest loans certainly are usually less than what the market rate is, so that's one great thing about the program. What's not great about it is it's called SBA, which most folks are not small businesses, and certainly nonprofits are not small businesses, right? So we weren't able to get that changed, even though we've complained about it for years. But there is a substantial change in how SBA is doing business, and I think it started after Hurricane Ian in Florida last year. Has anyone in the group heard about the big change in the SBA loans? No? Well, what's exciting about it is that there is no interest and no payment for the first year of the SBA loan. And that's a huge breakthrough, because what it really does is allow for nonprofits and others to actually collect from insurance or have other revenues coming in that they could conceivably pay it back before they were even having to make any payments at all. So that's pretty exciting and really gives nonprofits time to get back on their feet. So we're pretty excited about that development. Even though we hear that the eligibility rate is really low for those nonprofits that can qualify, that's a huge added bonus for them. So if they provide an essential service, they could be eligible and they can get up to 2 million. And then they can also get additional funds for the prevention and protection from future damage as well. Next slide. They also have economic injury disaster loans, because a nonprofit is not able to be functioning and doing their normal services. They could be eligible for economic injury, because when they're not doing and providing their usual services, then revenues from certain programs may not be coming to them. And those are the things that are allowable for that economic injury payment. And that's the information on applying for disaster assistance from SBA. Unfortunately, the deadline for applying for SBA assistance is passed, but what's really important is just knowing for the future that call to SBA is never going to hurt when you have anything going on. Just go ahead and apply. There's no cost for the application to SBA. So I think, in the future, if you have anything going on applying to SBA. And one thing we didn't mention is that SBA has different declarations. So sometimes there'll be an SBA disaster declaration even before there's a FEMA declaration. And sometimes when there is not even going to be a FEMA declaration, there are SBA declarations. So that's important to note, just in case you have images, it's an SBA declaration. So are there any questions? Okay, great.
Right. Am I the last?
We're last.
I was gonna say, let's see if I can keep you awake for the last few minutes of the day. So the way I've organized my information is to articulate to you the programs that might work for you depending on who you serve, okay? Because what rural development does is we are looking at the ultimate beneficiary of who you serve. So go ahead. The first program, my name is Sarah Waring. I am she, her pronouns. I live in East Montpelier, and I work for USDA Rural Development. We have offices here in Montpelier, which we're still not back in, up in St. Johnsbury and in Brattleboro. And we also have a 2-state jurisdiction, so we work in New Hampshire as well. We primarily fund in 3 different buckets. One is around housing, both multifamily and single-family housing for low and very low income residents and individuals. We then fund in the business ecosystem to help support small rural businesses to get up and running with loan products and a few grants. And then we really support communities to do community facilities and infrastructure. So I get to be here all day long talking to all the different groups. So the first program I want to talk about, and this is, for the purposes of our recording, this is an evergreen, year-round, open every year program that you can use at any year. It does not relate to a disaster. We're here all the time. And when you think about preparing for the future, if mitigation funding from the state is not an option at this stage, this is the kind of program that you could use now to plan upgrades and development to your facilities for the future, right? So I have a fact sheet in the other room, which I can share with anyone who's in the room today. But the basic premise of this is to develop, support, or expand essential community services. So this is designed for nonprofit organizations or municipalities who serve the general public. This is our broadest range of portfolio. In other words, we fund education, we fund healthcare, we've done quite a lot of work on schools. We just did $57 million worth of investment in the Winooski school system. We work with, yeah, there you go. Some of them are there, public facilities, business incubators, food systems work, but it has to be owned and operated either by a nonprofit or by a municipality. This can also be equipment, so you can use this funding to buy equipment. If a nonprofit, for example, is helping to support or a municipality, the example I used this morning was a few municipalities coming together to use this program to buy communications infrastructure between towns so that their fire districts and their police departments could talk to each other, and revitalizing their emergency communications infrastructure. So they bought equipment, which is great. There is a population limit, and similar to the way the FEMA Public Assistance describes their pyramid of eligibility, what I want you to think about with this program is, first, you have to be in a town or a census tract that's under 20,000 people, which is most of Vermont. Then second, you have to be the right eligible applicant, right? This is primarily loan dollars. However, you can be eligible for grant dollars depending on your median household income of your area. So if you are a community that has a higher median household income, we give you fewer grant dollars. If you are a community that has a lower median household income, we give you more grant dollars. Our money is designed to go first to the people who need it the most. And then our loan dollars are available really to anyone. So at any point in time, you can get a loan under this program for this bricks and mortar type funding. I will also say they are low interest loans. They are generally 30 to 40 years. Right now, our interest rate is 3%. So it saves you a lot of money to come to us to get your loan. What I will also say is you are required to prove to us that other lenders aren't going to lend you that amount of money. So there is a little bit, and there is security that we have to look at. It's a complicated process when you enter into a loan with us. All right, switch over, please. The next few slides, and Elaine, help me out because we're going to skip the income limits on this, okay? The next few slides are designed for those nonprofits that serve low and very low income people who are looking for housing. Right, so the Rainbow Bridge is one of those examples, being a long-term recovery group. We have year-round, every year, 2 primary flagship programs in our single-family housing portfolio. We have home repair, grant and loan dollars, and we have home ownership, grant and loan dollars. I'm going to first just describe our regular year-round program that you can come to us at any time for. Then I'll tell you a little bit about how it works during a disaster. But year-round, at any point in time, if someone who meets our income eligibility has a health and safety issue on their home, or a repair that's critical that needs to happen, or let's say an upgrade because of mobility issues, and now they need an elevator or a wheelchair ramp, this is the program for them. In addition, if there are folks on the Community Action Agency's weatherization waiting list, and they can't get to weatherization because their roof is not strong enough, or their walls are not strong enough, or the porch needs to be rebuilt, this is the program that can help them finance those things first, so that they can then go lower their energy costs by doing weatherization. So if you're a housing related or a case manager related long-term recovery group, this is a program to know about and refer people to. There's a low interest loan, right? But then there are also grants. In general, the grants are restricted by not only income, but also age. And this is designed for folks who are on fixed incomes. 62 plus, right? Because they don't generally have a way to increase their income to be able to pay off the loan, so we are allowed to give them grants. In times of disaster, so this is looking ahead to next time, we are allowed to increase the amount of grant dollars we can give out for home repair. We are also sometimes allowed to waive that age restriction. During the disaster last summer, we were allowed to waive our age restriction. We could provide grants to anyone if they met our income eligibility. And we actually, because Congress and our agency happen to have enough money, we're able to do grants up to $42,650. So a resident only had to go to FEMA individual assistance and check their flood insurance, then they could come directly to us for grant money. And it's worked out pretty well. Okay, next slide, please. This is a list of what we can and can't help with generally, right? So generally, almost anything in the public health and safety sort of realm is an eligible activity. However, we can't improve your offsite landscaping, we can't refinance your debt, we can't do site preparation, we can't do landscape, we can't do driveways. There are a couple of things we're just not allowed to do. And mobile homes and manufactured homes are allowed, but that foundation is important to us. Because then it is a permanent home and not actually, yeah.
Sorry,
That is,
so when you say, you can't help with like decks and concretes and stuff, but you do have accessibility, so
That's
building ramps or something like that.
elevator lifts, ramps, all of those things are allowed. Yep, yep, safety issues for folks who have mobility issues. Totally allowed. Yep. All right, let's keep going. These are income limits by county. I'm going to skip over those because they're on our website and no one here is directly related to housing that I can tell. However, they are in the PowerPoint and you can get them later. I am also going to skip over this one, Elaine. Okay, home loans. So again, low interest loan directly to the family. We are then the mortgage holder with them. And we provide below market rate if you are income eligible to buy a new house, in some cases to construct a house. We can include the closing costs and repairs. And we have a really robust portfolio of support around getting that application in, helping with first-time homeowners to getting them to workshops about financing. And we have a lot of partners that help us to refer folks into this program. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, that's that. All right, this is the last one I'm going to talk about. We have quite a few of our programs are open to nonprofit organizations. Some of them are allowing the nonprofit to do its like regular business, right? Sometimes nonprofits do sort of the social service side of work. Sometimes they are doing economic development work. And this program is one that is designed for nonprofits that are supporting small businesses. So in other words, if you are a nonprofit whose clientele are entrepreneurs, you can apply to us for a grant. You could use that grant for technical assistance. You can help them to write a business plan, write a marketing plan, set up their website, right? Or you could actually help them to buy land, help them to buy equipment. The land then would have to be shared, right, amongst the businesses that you serve. The equipment would have to be used by all the businesses that you serve. Quick example is a business incubator. So if the business incubator buys 3D printers and fancy podcasting equipment, any small entrepreneur could come in and use that technology and equipment, and it is federal dollars that pays for that. The nonprofit holds it, right? But any business could come and use it. Similarly, you could actually create a revolving loan fund with this funding for nonprofits. And we have even more lending tools. If you're interested in getting into the lending world, you let us know, because we are happy to invest money in you to relend. And then a lot of it is about that planning and technical assistance and training. So many of our organizations across the state of Vermont that provide services to small businesses use one or the other of our grant programs. This is just one example. Cooperatives, state agencies, communities, nonprofits, and institutes of higher ed are all eligible for this. I think that is my last slide. Yeah? All right. Any questions for me? I could cover any of the other 72 grant loan programs that we've got, if you'd like me to, with the 2 minutes we've got left. No, I'm teasing. Truly, questions? All right. I think everyone's ready to go home, and
Well done.
I'm so glad we had this time together.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us through today, and for those of you who were panelists and support, sticking through 3 days. I think this has been actually a really valuable week. The conversations that I've seen happen, you know, independent of the program itself, are going to be valuable going forward, and we'll all be around this for a while. So it's nice to meet you. Until next time. And don't forget the historic preservation events in July, so keep coming around.